Hey everybody, welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Today we're back with Cardano, and because it's been so long since we've done a video, I'm just going to be going over my current working theory of Cardano, see if it still holds up, because it has been a while, and I do want to apologize for that as well. Just lots of things going on in my life that kind of made it easy for me to not record a video. So sorry about that, but I will be back to at least semi-regularly posting from now on. But anyway, for those of you that might be new to the channel or don't remember my theory or whatever, welcome. By the way, you're very welcome here. My theory is that what we're currently seeing is pretty similar to 2019, and I've been saying this for about a year now, but I do also want to make the point that nothing is ever the same, and while there can be similarities, especially at the start, things can very easily change or diverge from the model that you are working with. It's much more likely that things don't go as planned than that they do go as planned, especially in the markets and especially with crypto. So again, I think we're similar to 2019, and we'll get into that right now. So 2019, if we take a look, we can see that towards the end of 2018, November, December time, we put in this low and we hit this 3-cent price or 2.5 cents price quite a few times over the weeks until we eventually bounced up and put in a high of around 9-10 cents. We then came back down, and sorry, do note that's about a 3x. We put in this high, this 3x. We came back down, had a little retracement to about 7 cents or 6 cents. So now we're about a 2x up from this low. And then we made a final move where we put in a slightly higher high of about 11 cents, 29 weeks after our lowest low here. So from this low to our highest point took about 29 weeks, and it was just about close to 4x. In fact, it was about 4x, more or less on the head. After that high, we then went down, we traded downwards for about 25 weeks. And note that if we take how far we fell in that 25 weeks, from the high to the low, we dropped about 71%. We then got a bit of a revival, followed by an extreme crash, which brought us even lower than where we were here. We actually wicked well below, but of course this was COVID, so we'll talk about the possibility of that repeating itself later on. But of course this was COVID, brought us back down to this low, this 3-cent level that we were initially at a year ago, and from there on out we basically had our bull run, and that bull run lasted 75 weeks. Now, if we're going to compare what we've currently seen to 2019, 2020 time, we can see that there's a discrepancy straight away, and that's that this price here, this 24 cents, we bounced off this twice already before we got to this point here, which we're measuring from. This is the point that we moved up from. So we can see back in 2019, we came down from our peak to this low and then moved straight up from it. So we bounced straight off it basically, whereas here, we already hit it twice, technically you could argue 3 times maybe. This was at least our 3rd time being at this low. So you can argue that's a discrepancy, however I would say nothing ever plays out the same. It's ultimately up to you whether you think that's a big enough discrepancy to invalidate the rest of this in-progress model, if you will. But anyway, we get this low, and note that this is at the end of 2023, similar seasonality as the end of 2018 in terms of what time of the year it was. We get a rally up, nice strong rally, and we move to a high of about 70 cents, which note is about a 3x from this low of 24 cents. So again, if we go back, we see that we got a 3x from this low to this high, which is cool. And then to this second higher high, and excuse me, sorry, we got this high, a retracement, and then a stronger higher high afterwards, like we did in 2019. To this higher high is about 80 cents, which is a little bit under a 4x, but pretty similar to a 4x. So again, in terms of the move percentage-wise, well again, it wasn't the exact same, and I think you'd be, a bit misinformed to expect the exact same thing to happen again. But in terms of time frame and percentage move, things played out pretty similarly. Again, we were 3 weeks off here. It was 3 weeks sooner that we moved up to that high. Again, from this low here, which is where we're measuring from, we measure from the lowest low to the highest point. That was 26 weeks. In 2019, that was 29. I think that's pretty similar. And for me, it's holding strong so far. Now again, when we got this high, which was back in March, what did we see here? We saw that we got our 25-week downward trend. Now so far, we haven't had 25 weeks from this high. So we can't say with 100% confirmation or accuracy whether this is going to hit this kind of 70% drop that we saw back in 2019. Again, remember, we got a 70% drop from the high to the low. If we do get a 70% drop, that brings us, funnily enough, down to this 24-cent level, which would throw us a bit of a curveball, because apparently we're supposed to hit this low first, have a bounce, and then come down to the low, the 3-cent level, this blue line, which this cycle is the 24-cent level. I think you could argue a good case for not having a bounce and just going straight down to this level, to this purple. That's what the percentage would say. Maybe we just take longer to get there. Maybe we just go slowly trend down. If we take a look at where we currently are, how far we've fallen so far, from this high to the low, we can see we've dropped a total of 60%. So we need to take out this low by an extra 10% for us to kind of hit our target, if you will. And please imagine me saying target with hard air quotes, because again, there is no target. It's just comparing it to 2019. However, I do think there's a good case to be made that we do get kind of a little bounce and then some kind of a move up, maybe not to the same degrees. Maybe it's a much weaker move. Maybe it's barely noticeable. Maybe it's just a couple of weeks of trading sideways and then a move down. But I do think there's a case to be made for some kind of a move up, or at least some kind of not of a move down. Because we do often see this, especially with Bitcoin after the halving. Because it's easy to say, well, 2019, 2020, that was just COVID. We do often get a bit of a move up. Now, you could argue that we won't get a severe of a move down. You could say that we might bottom out here after these 25 weeks. And just start trading up instead. We won't see this sell-off. We won't come down to this low, or maybe we will come down to this low, but we'll come down much sooner because COVID won't bring us back down lower. Just know that if we're following roughly a 2019 premise, you can expect us to come down a little bit lower. Now, I also think that altcoins rally when the Fed cuts rates, but not just when it cuts rates, more importantly, when rates are kept low, when the Fed has finished cutting rates and they are currently low, so they haven't started raising again. That's when, historically, the crypto space has done well. That's what happened here. Fed cut rates, started to rally, and then when rates were at their lows, when the Fed finished cutting rates, boom, explosion. And now, of course, lots of money printing here as well, but that usually comes along. We also have elections coming up in America over the next few months. I think that's the kind of time frame that I'm counting for Cardano to put in a bottom, which basically I think the crypto space will bottom out this year. Or not bottom out, sorry. I think by 2025, we won't be moving any lower than where we were in 2024. But again, that's just my opinion. If we look at where we currently are, which is about 50% down from the all-time high, so we've still got a bit of a way to go, about a 20% of a drop to bring us down to this level. However, if you don't think we're going to touch that level again, we need to move down about 25% from current price to kind of hit this higher low that we got last cycle. And again, you might say 25%, that's a lot to do in 5 weeks. Cardano made a move at one point of minus 35% in 1 week. I'm not saying it has to go down that severe, 1 week of just obliteration. I'm just saying it's very possible. And that happened 3 months ago. So it's still very recent history. And, we've seen similar moves all throughout Cardano's price history. So again, nothing is off the table. Just note that I don't think it's going to play out exactly how it did back in 2019, but I think we probably will see quite some similarities. And eventually, in years to come, when we zoom out on the Cardano chart and we take a look at the kind of booms and busts that Cardano saw, I think that we'll be able to match these two time periods up, 2019 to 2020 and 2024 to 2025. I think we'll more or less be able to naively lump them together as the same move. But only time will tell. Quickly, before we finish the video, I want to take a look at the Bitcoin pair. Now here, I think it's actually more accurate to compare us to 2020, kind of late 2020 to 2021. I know that obviously goes against what we saw on the USD, but again, I don't think we're getting the same thing. I think we're getting 2024. You know what I mean? It's not going to be 2019. It's not going to be 2020. It's going to be its own thing. So I think we have to compare the moves that are most similar and see what we could potentially see after that, even if that does contradict some other beliefs that we have or similarities that we provided previously. For me, in my opinion, I think we look a lot more similar to 2020. We peaked out at literally the same price on the Bitcoin chart at 1600 Satoshis after making a move of basically 100%, a 2x from the previous low. We then traded down. Now here's where the discrepancy kind of comes in, but also kind of doesn't. 23 weeks after we put in this high, we put in our low back in 2020 after making a move of minus 70%. If we zoom in here of what we've currently seen, we can see we're currently 33 weeks trading down, and we haven't hit this 70% low, the 68.5, whatever you want to call it. We haven't hit that yet. However, if you want to look at it slightly differently and say from the halving, it took us 32 weeks to reach this low, and we then say, okay, from the halving, it took us 32 weeks to reach this low, we can see we still have quite a long time before we come down to this low. And in fact, it projects a December time frame when we come down to this 450 sats level. Now, me personally, I do think it will be different. I don't think we will take that long to get down there. I think we'll be down there much sooner. We could have a similar situation where we hit it once, bounce up, come back down to the level. We might just spend ages down there, like we did when we were actually at this level back in 2019. We spent a long time bouncing up and down off the level before we had a rally up. Again, I ultimately don't know, but I really do think that we are going to come back down to that 450 sats level. I think that really is on the table. And again, if we're following the 4-year cycle, we have another year or so before we're due our all-time highs. If we take 4 or 5 months to get down to this level, we still have 7 or 8 months of a bull run ahead of us. Again, Bitcoin dominance keeps putting in all-time highs. Sorry, not all-time highs, it keeps putting in higher highs for this cycle. Last week, it had its highest close for this cycle at 54%. I think it was 54% weekly close, which is extremely strong. And while Bitcoin dominance continues to climb higher and higher, I don't think we can expect altcoins like Cardano to be able to hold out against Bitcoin. Once we see an actual reversion on the Bitcoin dominance chart, that's when we can start worrying about altcoin season. But until then, it's just a slow trend down. But just an interesting point to be aware of. Also note that if you want to compare it to 2019, once we got this high, it took us 51 weeks for us to bounce finally up from this level. We can see that from this high, 51 weeks also brings us out literally to the same week. Literally to the same week. So whichever theory you want to go with, whichever one you want to go for, if you're going to say, well, they must play out the same, which of course they mustn't, but if you're going to draw from either 2019 or 2020, they both suggest a December timeframe from when we bottom out. Now, just because two charts suggest the same thing doesn't mean it's going to play out, but that is a pretty strong reason to be more inclined to believe something like that is going to happen, especially with the limited data that we have with Cardano. But it's totally up to you to decide for yourself. That's not something I can tell you. That's not something anyone can tell you. If we do get this low, we move back down to this low, where can we expect Cardano to move to? I think we can probably expect it to move somewhere close to 3,000 sats, which would be a 500%, 600% increase against Bitcoin, which would mean Cardano would outperform Bitcoin by a 6x, roughly. If you expect maybe a 2x from Bitcoin from here, or maybe a 3x from here to the all-time high, you can expect Cardano to respectively make a 12x or an 18x, or somewhere in the middle. Again, Cardano's price currently is 40 cents. A 10x is putting that at $4, which is well above its previous all-time high. But that's assuming that if we come down to this low, if this low of 24 cents also lines up with the low that we get on the BTC pair, and then we get a 12x from there, that would put you back at basically the all-time highs for a 12x, which I think is more reasonable. Again, last cycle, just to kind of keep you aware, we got a move from 3 cents to $3, which was over a 10,000% move. I do not think we will get anything near that this cycle, but if we were to, from this low of 24 cents, get an 11,000% move, you can see, of course, I'm running out of space, but it would put you somewhere around $30, I'm pretty sure, if my maths is going to work. A quick 11,000% move. Yep, around $28, give or take. If you think that's possible for Cardano, go for it. But again, note the market capitalization is currently 14 billion. If you're going to get an 11,000% move, and you're going to ignore the new creation of tokens over that time period, you're just going to say snapshot as is now, times it by 10, that brings the market cap to over $1 trillion. So it would have overtaken Bitcoin's current market cap. For me, I don't see that as realistic. I think Cardano is a great project. I believe in it, but I don't think it's close to Bitcoin's level. I don't think it's going to flip Bitcoin. And of course, Bitcoin will have grown during that time frame too. I just don't think that's on the table. I don't think Cardano will break a $1 trillion market cap for a while. It might not ever do it. I don't know. But it's not something I have on the table for this cycle. Again, you can believe your own thing, but my intuition tells me that's that's not a possibility. And kind of what we see with the Bitcoin chart again, where maybe we get a 10x or we outperform Bitcoin by a 6x, that brings us roughly to our previous all-time high. I would be more inclined to believe that. We can see that maybe another way of looking at it, last cycle we got a close, or sorry, the first cycle Cardano got a close at about $1, and we moved up to a close of $3. So we got about a $2 jump there, or just under a 2x. If you want to take a 2x from last bull run's close, we get somewhere around $8. So maybe that's also something you might be more inclined to believe. I think that's more realistic than the $30. But again, at the end of the day, I have no way of knowing. I'm going to wrap up this video because it's been long enough. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike too. That's totally fine. Comment down below which outcome you think is most likely for Cardano. And again, thank you so much for watching for this long. Have a great day, guys. Take care and peace.